Attack on Titan Season 4 Part 2 Episode 5 has finally been released, and this is my review of the episode. As you may or may not know, I have been extremely critical of Mappa's adaptation of Attack on Titan thus far. I do think that they haven't necessarily been doing a great job with the adaptation, understandably due to the circumstances, but nonetheless still not that great of a job. In the last video I uploaded, I stated why I feel this way in great detail if you want to watch that, but to sum it up, I basically just think that Mappa doesn't understand Attack on Titan, and they don't understand which moments are important and which moments are not. They don't understand when to emphasize and when to skip. They don't understand what pacing is good, and a lot of things like that. I have a very low bar set for Mappa when it comes to Attack on Titan and making a good Attack on Titan episode. So many people watch my channel and come to my channel to be upset at me for having that opinion. There are some people who actually expect me to have a bad opinion on an episode at this point. A lot of people told me before I watched this episode that it would be very bad and I would be very disappointed with it. And so I went into the episode with an open mind, like I always do, hoping that they were wrong. And I have to say with absolute certainty that they were 100% wrong. Not only is this the single best episode of Attack on Titan that Mappa Studio has ever produced by far, it is also one of the best episodes of Attack on Titan, period. And I don't say that lightly. This is coming from someone who, once again, is extremely critical against Mappa as well as biased against Wit Studio. But I would say that this was almost on the level of some of the best that Wit Studio ever delivered in Attack on Titan. Unfortunately, there are just a few negatives that I have with the episode that tone it down just a bit from being perfect, a perfect 10 out of 10 for me. And I'm going to go over those problems in a moment, and I'm also going to defend this episode because there are a lot of issues that people have with this episode that I don't think are fair, and I'm going to go over that as well. So yes, in this video I'm mostly going to be praising and defending Mappa. Can you believe it? I'm not a Mappa hater after all. Wow. So since this review is going to be mostly overwhelmingly positive, I'm going to start off with going over those negatives. The first negative, after the amazing scene with Grisha reclaiming the founding Titan, which was well done in my opinion and very well animated, very well paced. It was quick, simple, easy, but it was done. It got the job done. It felt impactful. It felt like something was going on. And the transition with the blood drops I thought was amazing. So I had no problem with that part of the episode. But then it goes into Grisha's flashback with Zeke. And obviously I love this scene. I think the scene was great. I praised it in the last review. I really do think this is a great scene, but I don't think it should have been here. I understand that they wanted to pad out the episode a little bit more, but they definitely could have removed this. We did not need to see this whole conversation again. I wouldn't mind if the episode was a shorter length episode, if that's what they had to do to remove this, because it does slow down the episode for me, and I really didn't like the whole entire conversation being here. I think it actually takes away from the conversation in itself because it kind of feels like, okay, now you're like shoving it down my throat. I don't really want to watch this forcefully again. You know, it was a very powerful moment. You did a great job. You shouldn't just use that again. They could have put anything there. They could have put a flashback there. They could have put, like, I don't care, anything, literally anything else other than this conversation. So that's my first complaint. It's not a major complaint because the scene itself is obviously good. I just wish it wasn't in this episode. But the next problem I have with the episode is actually a major problem in my opinion, and that is Eren's declaration of war on the entire world through his telekinesis to paths. This was poorly done, if you ask me. Now, I do like the placement of it, and I'm going to go over the placement of it later because they do actually move things around. And this chapter, the chapter in the manga and the episodes, they're not exactly in chronological order with the manga. And I do think that it actually may work better this way. Obviously, I have to see the entire product before I'll be able to come to that, but I do think that it's a good idea for now what they've done with the placement. So I will go over that later, but for now let's just discuss the moment itself. So when Eren sends his message to paths, a lot of people were complaining because the voice actor sounds like not how manga readers would have expected him to sound in this moment. They expected him to sound like more of a triumphant, regretful, angry hero, I assume, because that's how I expect him to sound, instead of sounding like, I am going to attack the outside world and I'm going to kill them all. And the parody is the island I was born and raised. People expected him to be like, this is my island and I will destroy anyone who gets in my path. They expected him to be just a little bit more edgy than this. I know people don't like the word edgy, but I can tell that's what people were expecting in this scene. And I can't say that I wasn't expecting it in this scene, but I don't know. I guess it's all right for me. It didn't really bother me, his tone of voice. What bothered me was how fast he was saying each line after each line. I would have liked for each line to have a moment to sit, go to the next line, moment to sit, go to the next line. But instead it's like, I'm going to show the world, and then that's it. It's like it's too fast, and I understand. Like I said, they could have removed the Grisha flashback or shortened it, and they would have plenty of time to extend this scene out. It doesn't even require animation because everyone's frozen in time. So just extending this scene out, adding a better OST for it, and then finally animating Aaron's face. I understand that he's supposed to be frozen in time, but you don't understand. We understand that, but at the end of the day, this is animation. You can't just copy paste a manga panel, literally a manga panel, and put it in the anime. You can't do that. That is unacceptable. I don't care what kind of artistic thing you're trying to go for. The filter and all that doesn't help. The green eyes don't help. It doesn't look good. Not good. I don't know anyone who justifies this. I've seen a lot of people saying that even they can say that this is kind of bad. I've seen some people justify it and saying, well, if his mouth moved, it would look weird. Well, obviously, if it's a fan animation, if you move his mouth on a fan animation, it's going to look weird. But if a professional studio does it, where they move his jaws and his eyes as well, and his hair and everything, it could have been amazing to see that. It would have been really nice to see that manga panel animated. I would have really liked to see that. So that took a lot. That part right there took a lot of points off the episode for me. If that declaration had have been done at least decently, I would have given this episode a 10. Like for Attack on Titan totality, I would have given this episode a 10. But that alone just bumps it down so much for me. But that doesn't mean that it's not a good episode. So let's go ahead and get into the good stuff. So the good stuff. Oh my gosh. I like I said, I have to praise Mappa when they do right. I have to, because I've been so negative towards them. So I have to be positive when positive things happen. And this episode was so good to me. I have never been this entertained watching a Mappa episode. I was told by someone that this was a new director for Attack on Titan. It's his first time ever directing Attack on Titan. And as I said in my reaction, they need to hire this man. He needs to direct every single episode because he knows what the hell he is doing. And I agree with pretty much 99% of every decision that was made in regards to this episode. So let's first go over Ymir's backstory, I should say. Now, Ymir's backstory, the first thing I want to go over is the color palette and the differences in the art style, where the characters are shadowy and they have a glow to them. This is exactly what I was talking about in the last episode when everyone thought I was crazy, where I was saying that there was not enough difference between what was going on and going through paths, Grisha's memories, and visually showing that to the audience that Grisha's memories is actually different from a regular episode of Attack on Titan. This episode did that perfectly. It's just a small change, but it makes a huge difference. It makes you see this. You could look at any moment in this episode on Ymir's flashback, and you will know that this is Ymir's flashback. Even if you just glance at it, you'll know, because it looks entirely different. It still looks like obviously the same anime, but it has a different type of feel to it, and they did a great job. I visually thinking, like looking at the manga and thinking how Ymir's timeline will look in anime form, this is exactly what I imagined it would look like, and I just think it's flawless what they did with Ymir's backstory and the art style. That alone is just a 10 out of 10 for me. But not only that, handling of the story was great. Now obviously we all know that the story of Ymir I don't necessarily agree with, but Mappa has to work with what they have to work with. We can't blame them for that. So the story, the way they handle it, they do a very good job. They have some new additions where Ymir gets they show how she became a slave, which isn't really necessary, but it's not. It doesn't take anything away. They also show where when the king is about to be attacked, the warrior gets stabbed, and then the blood splatter goes up, and then you see that it's Ymir. It's a very shocking. It was a lot more shocking than it was in the manga, if you ask me. And it was better done there in the anime. I really do like the way they handled that. Now, one thing I will say is there's differences, and I'm going to go over the differences as well and what that means for an anime only ending towards the end of this video. But there are differences here that I thought were pretty alarming for anime only endings. Even though I don't believe in wanting them anymore, this episode make me believe in it even less, but I'll go into that later on in the video as well. Ymir's Titan transformation, the OST choice, I literally can go on and on and on. Like this little Ymir segment was so well done. I was honestly shocked when she fell down the tree and they showed her falling. Like these are little things. They don't really do anything for the story, but that is what I'm talking about when I say adaptation. These little things add up to make the experience feel more whole, more quality, more complete. And they take the manga and they enhanced it. And that's exactly what I've been asking for Mappa to do. This is what I mean when I say a good adaptation. This is the perfect example of a good adaptation to me. So after Ymir's flashback is complete, they go ahead and make another change here. And this change I'll go over because I don't think it really means that much for anime only endings. But there's a change where Ymir is, instead of just showing her building Titans, they kind of build it up. They kind of like have her walking and not showing exactly that she's building Titans. And I really like that way of showing the repetitiveness and what she had to do for thousands of years, getting it through to the audience that it was extremely repetitive, which is something the manga didn't really necessarily do. It kind of did if you inferred it by looking at the number of Titans, but to actually show her walking back and forth and dropping the bucket, I thought it was really good. The only problem I had with this was her neck constantly being shown like this. I understand that they were trying to do the repetitive thing, and I think the reason why it was directed this way was because they wanted Eren to grab her neck to like cancel out the repetitiveness, which I thought would have been amazing, but it's probably just something that got scrapped on the cutting room floor. But I think that would have really worked out well if they had done it that way. Then the next scenes being repetitive would have made sense. But that's the only real problem I have, was it just a little too repetitive, but it's fine. It worked out fine. And maybe if they had added like one more animation cycle to it, maybe that would have made it feel a little less egregious for me, but it's okay. And then Eren grabs her, and as I've said, I've already gone over Eren grabbing her, and I think that this scene when Eren grabs her is pretty interesting. So what they do here is you can hear Eren in the background kind of because he's further away from Zeke. So once Zeke starts going like, Eren, what are you doing? You can hear Eren still talking, but he's further away, which is saying I'll end the world. That part when he says that, you can barely hear it, which I think was very good because it's for people who aren't watching in the subtitles or maybe not paying attention to all the subtitles, may have missed that. So that's that was a good decision on anime's part. People who are paying attention could say, wait, he said in the world, and rather than just being up in our face, and then later on when he finally declares it would be even more shocking. So I thought that was a great addition. I thought Eren's frantic running to Ymir was also very well done. The animations while he was running, I didn't go over this that was at the beginning of the episode, but I think everything as far as the animation goes, with him running to Ymir, him breaking out of the chains, I thought all of that was great. I felt every single moment. I felt the impact of him ripping his hands out of the chains and the fingers breaking off, and I felt all that. I felt that for sure. I thought that was great. And then Ymir's finally deciding to join Eren with her crying and her face looking that way. I thought that, so when I imagined this scene in the manga, I imagined Ymir kind of like glaring up quickly like that. That was my imagination, but in this episode it doesn't happen. She glares up slowly, the tears slowly comes down, and I thought that was fine. That's a different interpretation than what I had, but there's nothing wrong with that. I thought it fit well. And then we get to Eren's transformation, which is entirely different than it was in the manga, but it was amazing what they did with this transformation. The animation, I could not believe it was in 2D. I could not believe it. It was so good. The colossal Titans coming down, the rumbling, the color palette of the rumbling, the reds, like the hues. I honestly was amazed at what I was watching when I saw the entire thing happen, the entire animation sequence. The Titans, I thought, even the Colossal Titans, I thought they looked good. I thought the CGI on those wasn't too bad. It fit in well. Maybe it's because the entire screen was red. It was harder to like pick out the CG. Like the CG doesn't stand out that well, because I did notice that when Reiner appeared, I did notice his CGI a lot more than I did the Colossal Titans. I thought the Colossal Titans looked great. I did not have a problem with how they looked in any way, shape, or form. I really, really liked that as well. But the entire rumbling segment itself was immaculate. Like, I honestly watched it time and time again just to go through and make sure that I wasn't missing anything. But just the attention to detail on this, like for example, when Gabby's on the ground, you can see the smoke fly over her gun. Like, just small things, like they did not have to do that. But the attention to detail in this scene truly shows that they were trying to make something incredible, and I do applaud them at this. This was a very, very good sequence, and I was just blown away by it. Honestly, I was honestly blown away by it. And then Aaron's transformation into his final Titan form, the CGI for the skeleton doesn't look too shabby. I didn't really even notice it. I really think the red filter may be helping me out a lot here. It's something about that red filter that just doesn't make it seem so CGI. I don't know how to explain it, but it looks a lot better. I don't know. This episode looked a lot better. It may have been the direction, it may have been the colors. I'm not sure the animation, but the way Aaron transforms and stands up and starts moving, it like you can feel the weight, the gravity. A lot of people were complaining that they felt like the rumbling or maybe the mixing on the voices may have been a little off, because while Armin is screaming to Mikasa, we can clearly hear Armin, even though Mikasa can't hear him. So maybe lowering their voices a bit here or drowning it out more with the rumbling may have helped a little bit with that, but I don't think it's too major of a problem, and it's a really short scene. Another thing I noticed is that the mid-credit scene where they're supposed to go to commercials happens at 19 minutes in this episode. Now, you may be thinking that's kind of weird, and so did I, but when I thought about it, there really isn't a place where they could have put the commercial scene that really would have worked for me. I mean, the only place I could think would be where Ymir died, but I understand why they didn't do that. It kind of would ruin the flow of the episode, and I completely respect that they decided to go over prioritizing the flow of the episode rather than prioritizing a commercial break, and I have nothing but a respect and admiration for that. So with that being said, like I said, I've just got done praising this episode. I can't praise it anymore. This is the first time I've ever watched an episode of Mappa, and I wanted to watch it again after. This is the first time I've ever watched an Attack on Titan episode of Mappa where I actually thought about it the next day, where I actually remembered what happened. And I just honestly, I can't believe how good this episode was. I'm blown away by how well they handled this episode. Mappa, you need that director to work on every single episode. He really knows what he's doing. And I also like the OST choice, the new OST for Rumbling. I thought it was good. It sounds great. Just don't overuse it, please. But for what it is, I thought it was a good song. Obviously, I would prefer OG music in this scene, but I think what they put was actually just fine. All right, so now that we've gone over everything, let's go ahead and get into the changes of this episode, which I do think the changes of this episode deserve to be mentioned and discussed because they are very major changes. First change I want to go over is Ymir's backstory, more specifically when she gets killed. In the manga, when Ymir gets killed, Fritz makes it very clear that Ymir could get up if she wanted to, but she doesn't. And the anime, he doesn't make it so clear. He more so just commands her to get up, and then she slowly dies. You can make the assertion that the blow was actually fatal in the anime, and she died immediately, and she didn't have a choice but to die. You could kind of argue that if you watch the anime, but in the manga, there was definitely implications that she died on purpose. So that's a very, very big difference. I'm not sure what it means for AoE or anything like that, but that is a very big difference. The next difference I want to go over is the placement of the episodes. Now, this episode is different than the manga, and there is a flashback before Aaron's Titan form is ever revealed. Aaron's Titan form isn't revealed until quite some time after the rumbling begins. And in this episode, at least part of it was revealed a lot sooner than it was in the manga. And that's because in the manga, before the first time it was revealed was a bit later. There's a flashback that goes through and shows Aaron's past and Aaron, what he did during the time skip and how he came to this conclusion, and why he's partially the reason of why he's doing what he's doing. But the anime just skips over that part. Now, do I agree with that placement? I kind of do. I do think that Isayama relied on flashbacking a little bit too much towards the end of the story, and I think that it kind of starts to get a little egregious, where every episode the character's having a flashback about what happened a few years ago. I understand why he did it. It was actually very well done when he did it, but I do prefer that the story be a chronological story. So I do not mind this change. The only thing is what are they gonna do later on? Are they just gonna put the flashback randomly somewhere, and then after that go back to reality? You know, the transition from the flashback is the most important thing, and Isayama mastered that for sure. So I'm not sure how they're going to transition that flashback into, real time again, but obviously that flashback has to be included. I just can't see an Attack on Titan where that flashback is not included. Maybe they're going to combine it with 131's flashback, which I think that might work as well, but we'll just have to see where they go with it. But the next change, and this is the largest change that people had the problem with, was the scenery scene. The scenery scene in the manga was a scene where Eren explained to Zeke why he wanted to do what he wanted to do and what was going to happen. He was going to reach that scenery. And when he says that scenery, he has a very, very passionate face. Now, a lot of people believe that this is a very passionate face where Eren was finally, opening up and saying what he really wanted. And you can see the smile on his face, that scenery. In the manga, he just says that sight, which maybe is bad translation. I don't know. He could have said that scenery. It doesn't matter what he says per se, and more so matters his face. You can see that he clearly does not want to do it. It's something that he's not very passionate about, something that he kind of regrets that he has to do, but he must do. That's kind of the face that he's making, which is a completely different face than the manga. Now, a lot of people are blaming Mappa for this, but can you honestly blame Mappa for this? Think about it. They made every single face the exact same as every face in the manga during this scene with Ymir. They made it all the exact same. Why would this be the only one that's different unless they were told to make it different? And this is a huge difference, not a small difference. It's a big, big difference. So I highly doubt, I almost want to bet my life on it, that Mappa had nothing to do with this decision. That this was something that was completely out of their control, and they simply had to animate it the way they were told to animate it. And that's why I defend this. If Mappa were in charge of this decision, if I believe they were in charge of the decision, yeah, I think it would be a big negative. But they are clearly not in charge of this decision. This means that I can't blame them. And also, this also means, in my opinion, more negativity for AoE. Now, in the original ending, Eren was passionate about destroying the world. In this anime, he is not passionate about destroying the world. So if he was passionate about destroying the world but didn't want to do it in the manga, what makes you think he'd actually want to do it in the anime? It doesn't make sense. He's even less likely to do a full rumbling in the anime than he ever was in the manga, because the anime is foreshadowing Eren to be doing this out of regret and not really wanting to do it a lot better than the manga did. So I just don't think AoE is happening, guys. I really don't. I hope it does, but I just, nah, man. I'm definitely out. This was like it was already dead to me, but this is like putting cement on the fucking grave, man. There's no fucking way that AoE is happening. But I mean, hey, we never know. But anyways, that's my review of the episode. Once again, I think it was great. Mappa's best by far. If you think that this episode was bad, but you like any other Mappa episode, I don't understand. I simply do not understand how. I don't get it. I have no clue how you were entertained. I don't understand what you expect from animation. When I watched Mappa episodes, the animation is not animation. It's just characters standing still, talking to each other, moving their lips. That's not animation. This was animation. There was movement. There was flow. this was animation. I enjoyed every moment of this episode, almost 99% of it, and I had a great time watching it. I'm gonna watch it again for sure someday in the future. This is not an episode that I will want to skip. I rate this episode an 10 out of 10 for Mappa and an 8 out of 10 for Attack on Titan in totality. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review. Next Sunday, we'll be reacting to Attack on Titan episode 6 live on YouTube at 12 p.m. CST, and stop by if you have a chance. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.